Okay, let me welcome you to the conversation segment of the Signature Show. It is not always that a man climbs an Iroko tree, and the Igbos have a very strong saying that anytime you climb an Iroko tree, please fetch as much firewood as you can. You wouldn't know when next you will climb it. This afternoon, I have a very special guest, the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Eyinnaya Abaribe. Senator, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
My pleasure.
In the Senate, while the security situation of the country was being debated, you made a very strong statement. You said that the president should resign. Did you say that out of your frustration over the security challenges Nigeria is facing? Or did you really mean that he needed to resign because he had proved to either be incompetent or incapable of handling the situation?
Well, let me say this, that yes, the frustration was there. At every point, we had reports coming in from everywhere. And the day before, a couple of days before, the Senate president had also indicated his own frustration with what had happened. And so, when we looked at the totality of everything, we felt that we would ask the president to take his own advice. You recall that in 2013,
yes,
he had advised Jonathan.
In the course of the campaign?
In the course of, well, not in the course of the campaign. Okay, that the elections was in 2015.
Yes.
It was in 2013, about 2 years before the elections, and said, in the course of making a comment as a statesman in the country, saying that he didn't have the capacity to be a commander-in-chief. So he had made that recommendation. And so now that we were seeing an incapacity to be a commander-in-chief, so we said, okay, why don't you take your own medicine? Because you had earlier made that recommendation. But beyond it all, some things that most of the time we tend to gloss over. The leader of Boko Haram, Shekau, made a broadcast recently and was taunting the chief of staff of the army and saying, we are living in your village. I don't know whether the import of that statement, what it meant to Nigerians, that the chief of staff of Nigeria couldn't go to his village because it was being occupied by Boko Haram elements. Of course, as chief of staff, you can call him the top soldier. And you can also say the same thing.
That the chief of army staff?
Yes, the chief of army staff. I think you can say the same thing about the national security advisor or those type of people. So, one would have thought that if there's no more motivation on this earth that you would have, then your own home is occupied by those people. And so the frustration wasn't just me. I was expressing the frustration of all well-meaning Nigerians who didn't know what else to do and who else to complain to. You understand? And so that was the real problem.
Now, a number of other Nigerians have also called for the outright sack of service chiefs. You are in government. You cannot run away from that.
Yes, of course.
Do you think the mere change of button instead of a rethinking of both method, attitude, and strategy and structure of our security, mere change of button by sacking the service chiefs, do you think it will address the problem fundamentally?
We live in a world of perception. And perception drives your reality. And so, if, let's say, the chief executive of Coca-Cola starts to post losses, what do you think the board will do? The board won't say, let us change this thing and let him, he's posting losses. You fire him, you bring another person, let that person now do this thing. Same thing. The reason is, first, the perception that something is being done. Yes. That motivates people. Secondly, is the new person comes, he knows that he also has a short time to impress. Otherwise, he gets fired. And therefore, he works much harder. And so those who, and even, it's now gotten to the ridiculous extent that the same chief of army staff could come out to say, even if you fire me, it will not stop. I mean, that is the height of insolence to Nigerians. We are paying his salary. He's not delivering. And he has the temerity to tell us, well, it doesn't matter, even if it will still be like this. How can it be? Nowhere else in the world will it happen. And when they now said, oh, we're in a war situation, you cannot, that's not true. Actually, people get fired in the war situation. I think really, my own assessment might be wrong, but is that there is every effort being made by the APC government in Nigeria not to take responsibility. Every effort is made not to take responsibility. Oh, they will blame it on this. Oh, I mean, 6 years, they're still trying to blame PDP. So what is this?
Blaming the party seems to contradict even the expressed position of some of your colleagues in the Senate on the APC side. They say, don't politicize security. Blaming APC will not be politicizing security.
You see, this is one of those things that happen, and you just look at them and you really shake your head. What is politicizing security? First, you appoint your service chiefs and all the heads of every security agency in Nigeria from the northern part of Nigeria, and you didn't politicize it. Then when I complain, you now say, don't politicize it. That's not true. That's not right. So we will wait until they sink us into an abyss, and there is no more Nigeria before they now said, don't politicize. So what kind of nonsense is that? That's absolute nonsense. We're not politicizing it. We're only saying you're not doing well. And Nigerians agree with me that they're not doing well. Because when you're doing well, you see the results. And I can tell you that in Nigeria, we saw the results. When Ihejika was the army
chief of army staff,
he continued pounding the Boko Haram people, sent them away, and these same people who are in government today now started shouting that they shouldn't be decimating Boko Haram. Now look at where it has gotten us. They did everything, wrote all manners of things, claimed that they were going to send Eyinnaya to the World Court, International Crime Commission, just because he was defeating Boko Haram. Now today, Boko Haram has blossomed, and what we are told, oh, technical defeat, then any day you mention that you have defeated them, any day you mention that you have bombed one of their side, they come and attack the next day. And so.
Some parts of the country, one part of the country has taken steps to address its own local security challenge. The 6 Southwest states initially, collectively, launched the Amoteku Security Initiative. I understand that the Southeast is also considering a version of it, either collectively or individually. This regional response, this state response to our security challenge, do you think is advisable? Do you think is helpful? Will it enable the country come to terms and at least ameliorate to some degree its security challenge?
I know the Igbo, we have a saying, and that saying that it is only a tree that you will approach with a knife to cut it down, and it still stands there and continues waiting for you to come and do it. These responses that you're seeing is because we have a very difficult situation where the state, which is supposed to have a monopoly of the powers of coercion, has lost it. And so, as human beings, the first law of nature is to preserve yourself. And so it was a natural reaction to preserving one's self. So that is why everybody is trying to set up their own. Since, like I said, the state that is supposed to have the coercive power doesn't seem to have that power anymore. And non-state actors now have more coercive power than the state itself. And so that's how this arose. Now, coming to the matter of the Southeast and the matter, I know, because I was part of a meeting that was called by Ohanaeze, and we had that meeting. We agreed that it is imperative for the Southeast to defend itself, and went ahead also to meet with the governors of the Southeast, and there was a joint agreement that there was the need to set up the different states passing laws and then setting up a coordinating body for this under some security, retired security chiefs of Southeast origin, and that plan is on the way.
Let me take you to a development that, to me, in my own opinion, a little bit uncomfortable. Recently, the Meeti Allah, the Fulani Cattle Breeders Union, addressed a press conference in Jos and accepted that they were responsible for the killing of 26 people in a community and burning down of 109 houses. Remember that the state governor, Lalong, was so enraged that he had to order the police to arrest the Meeti Allah leaders and the leaders of those accused of stealing cattle. A few weeks after, a few days after indeed, the Fulani National Movement, I hope that's their name, issued a statement to the effect that they had their fighters around the country ready to go to war to complete the assignment Usman Danfodio started. That apologists like Buhari and others are the people holding them back. The first instance, somebody identifiable addressed a press conference accepting responsibility for killing of 26 Nigerians and raising that entire community. The second, a statement by an identifiable group. And the state seems to be quiet. Should the state not take an action, a position in circumstances like this?
The state should, but the state will not.
Why would the state not?
The state will not because the state has been those that have been motivating and indeed giving succor to these actors. Let me put it that way. I have had occasion to make the same statement. I think it was on Channels TV, and I said that unfortunately, people have come out to say, we have committed this crime, and nothing. And I challenged them that day. Why have these people not been arrested? And of course, because nobody had talked to them, they've come out again to now say, we actually killed and murdered people. And nothing has happened. On the contrary, when a group of people from the Southeast now said, we are being treated badly, we are being treated like second-class citizens, and therefore we seek a referendum so that we can determine whether we can continue to stay under this uneven yoke. The state deployed everything called coercive force to now get them and proscribe them and call them terrorists. So those who are murderers, who have come out and said they are murderers, we are not called terrorists, we are not arrested, we are not done anything to. Those who just said, okay, give us a chance to even vote to know whether we can still stay here, we are already called terrorists. So you could see the disparity in treatment. And I have always said that this is what means that we cannot have a society that is for all. And I'm glad that we are being justified every day in our position that there is something fundamentally wrong and we need to fix it.
Something fundamentally wrong.
Precisely. What is fundamentally wrong is that there is no justice. You can't have a society in which people are treated unequally. What you're now telling us is that some people are a master race and some other people are not. And so you got to serve the master race. A kind of feudal system, or a system that says that some people are superior while they are not. And things will continue like this until they get to a head. What we who continue to sound these warnings are to tell people that there is a point at which you can no longer, you will have reached your elastic limit. And when you get there, then what you will get is nothing but chaos and a destabilization and a dismembering of this country. And those who are in positions of authority today seem not to think. That's just a very, very difficult thing for me to comprehend, because I would have expected that what you do if you're in a position of authority is that you should always project. You should see where the fault lines are and try to mend them. Because what you pledged to bring to Nigeria was not war or chaos. You pledged to bring peace and prosperity. And all the areas that you're supposed to do to get peace, you refuse to do it. So somebody comes out and says, I'm a murderer, I killed this one. The first thing you do is to arrest them. Then the rest of the people now know that you're committed to peace in the country. Now, what do you think will happen to those whose brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, children, and all that will do in this circumstance? They will have a resentment against the state and will not see the state as their overarching protector and all that. And I will say, okay, so it will now let everybody go back into self-protection and then take arms on yourself, and we just go into a state of anarchy. And we have continually warned that this is what is going on, and anybody who wants and who loves this country and wants us to progress, you must deal with it. If somebody does a crime, you must punish that crime. If you don't, all you do is that you sow the seed of destabilization in the future. And you could see it happening all over Nigeria. At the last time when we saw, I think it was the government of Katsina State negotiating with the bandits.
It began with Zamfara. Negotiated. Katsina
followed. I saw a clip that was posted, it was viral, where the leader of the bandits
had an AK-47.
Was carrying his AK-47, and the government officials were there, and he was boasting of all the things that he could or could not do. Of course, when you pay a blackmailer ransom, he will not stop. He will continue to up the ante. And that is exactly what happened. So after they had paid and they thought they had gotten some succor, then the people went back again, up to the extent that the governor got so frustrated, he said, shoot anybody you see riding a motorcycle. So you could see the frustration there. You could see that that policy of appeasement could not have worked and will never work. You don't appease a criminal, he will always come back tomorrow. And so we looked at all those things and we just wondered, you know.
Yeah, distinguished Senator, I want to interject at this point.
Yeah.
The National Assembly is made up of representatives of the people. In other words, Nigeria is fully gathered in the National Assembly. These questions were raising, these challenges were raising. Is the National Assembly either reluctant or incapable of addressing and maybe resolving some of these questions? Insecurity, different treatments for different sections.
There are two ways that the National Assembly gets involved in national matters and governance. The first one, of course, is through the making of laws.
Yes.
So you either bring new laws or you amend existing laws, basically for all the 64 or so items in the exclusive legislative list and the other items in the concurrent list. Now, that means that if the National Assembly makes laws, then the states also make laws, everything for good governance and welfare of the people. But when matters come up in the National Assembly, in either house, maybe a matter of urgent national importance. Just happens. So you have to bring it to the floor and you thoroughly debate it and you make recommendations. Those things now come up as resolutions of the House. Resolutions are packaged and sent to the president for him to now implement those resolutions. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, we make those resolutions and sometimes we don't hear anything again from the executive. So we're not so sure. Even at a particular point, I think it was in the 7th Senate, there was the creation of a committee on legislative compliance to be able to interface with the executive to say, we have passed all this. What have you done about it? And I think those committees exist on both sides, both houses of the National Assembly, yes. Yet, because a resolution does not have a force of law like a bill that has been passed into an act. And so it now depends on whether the government, led by this president, of course it's the executive, that's the government, wants to use whatever comes from the National Assembly as part of its governance process. The assumption that it should be so, because that is why your arms of government, just like, so whatever we do there and whatever the judiciary does with regard to judgments passed on issues. And so that is how government should work. So, so when you now say, oh, what we have discussed everything, there's nothing that has never been discussed on the floor and will still be discussed tomorrow as they arise. When this matter of the national insecurity, we set up a committee. I'm a member of that committee. That committee was given 6 days. That committee had just completed interfacing with all the different areas of our national security architecture, and the committee is going to come back, I think sometime next week or so, with concrete recommendations of what we think the way forward should be. That is our own thought. When we do it, we're also going to package it and we will send it to the executive. The ball will now be in the court of the executive. As we are packaging it to the executive, we're also going to let Nigerians know that these are the things that we have said, A, B, C, D, E, F, so that the public, the Nigerian public, who voted us into power, we know which arm of government are doing their jobs, as the case may be. If you, I read a piece by Babafemi Ojodu, Senator Ojodu, I think a couple of days ago, and he painted this pathetic picture of when he first went to a refugee camp and found that the elite in the society, I think it was Sierra Leone or Liberia, who had escaped from there and come to Nigeria and were left in a school. And so the big man who used to sit in his house and was served food from his kitchen and could go into his bathroom or whatever, was now forced to defecate openly, sleep without any on the floor, without a mattress and you could see how they had been. And his plea was that we should not get to that stage. And I completely agree with him. The unfortunate thing is whether managers of our society today are actually reading those things to be able to advise themselves. Because if they were, they will know that somebody cannot come out on national television and say, I killed these people and I burned these houses, and is left to roam the streets up till today. All you do is that you're setting the scene for anarchy in society. And that thing that you're afraid of may inevitably come because of the actions or inactions of those who are running our society today.
So today, there's something I want to remind you of.
Yes.
I hope you don't mind. You don't mind it.
Yeah.
In the First Republic, Tafawa Balewa once teased Aminu Kano, and he said, if Aminu Kano became the prime minister, he would not know when he would demonstrate against himself. In other words, activism was part of Aminu Kano's political life.
Or DNA, as the case may be.
I recall this because I want to ask you,
Yes.
isn't there anything like legislative activism where when the legislature feels so undermined and feels so frustrated, it could take its fight for a good cause to the people who elected them, to create a mass of pressure for the right thing to be done?
What you're saying is that people should leave lawmaking and come out to go and march on the streets. Is that what I understand?
When situations come to a head, what do you do?
I guess we have done it. A short while ago, I was with a group of people, and we marched from Legacy House all the way down to Ego Square to protest about some decisions coming from the Supreme Court, which we felt was not in the best interest of society. So that you can do. Even President Buhari and his members of this party had at one time also marched on the streets, and I think they walked all the way down to Luedet House and all that, and we saw it. So that is not strange. We have done it.
Let me draw your attention to something historical. Let me begin from 1979, when Nigeria had the Constitutional Conference under the Obasanjo military administration. In the course of debating what our constitution should look like, Northern delegation insisted on having the Sharia in the constitution. When they were not getting their way, they staged a walkout. Eventually, the accusation is, or the allegation is, Obasanjo caved in and Sharia was put into the constitution. Again, under Obasanjo's second coming as an elected president, some northern states, the arrowhead being Zamfara, insisted on Sharia law in their states. Obasanjo said that this will just spit out. And today, we have Islamic fundamentalism in the garb of Boko Haram. Not asking you to be a soothsayer. Do you see this as a progression from inserting Islamic law in the Constitution, making it the law of some states, and now we're having it as a major challenge across the country, fundamentalism? Does it appear to you that this is a progression towards religious domination?
No, I don't think it is. I do not believe that the Boko Haram phenomenon and other parts of restiveness of that nature was brought about by the fact of being the religion of Islam. A major part of the southwest states are Islam too. Yet you haven't seen anybody try to say that. What led, or what has led to this thing is the extreme deprivation, hunger, and we say the fact that wittingly or unwittingly, there was created a feudal society in the northern part of this country, and a class distinction, and an increasing deepening of the haves and the have-nots in the society. And that led to what I will now term a revolt of the underclass. Usually, modernity means that you should move everybody up. You give everybody free universal education. You provide jobs. You make everybody see themselves as part of a society. And you do not have those who are looked upon as who should permanently be the hewers of wood and the drawers of water for others. And I think it is this permanent underclass who now got to the point that they could be radicalized by those who were preaching. And it is that radicalization that they have subsumed under religion to now say everybody else who was a little bit wealthy, you're not practicing the true religion, and so on and so forth. I'll tell you this story. Jeremiah Husseini, Senator Husseini, who told us in the, I think it was in the 8th Senate, that he took a trip at the time that he was AMPP and went to Borno when Modu Sharif was governor. And that when they were driving from the airport all the way down to the city, Maiduguri, and that he was seeing the massive number of these youths, and he actually was touched to ask the governor, how are you going to take care of these people? Because fundamentally, one of the adages say that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Those same people were used for elections and all that. The stories are all over the place. Nobody can say that he didn't know. And of course, they got radicalized. One thing led to another, and now we have a full-blown insurrection in our hands over there. And at the point that these things were brewing, and this was the point at which national leaders who were thinking would have stepped in to make sure that those things don't reach the boiling point. But it has gotten to the boiling point now. And at first, people felt that it was confined to a very little place, so it doesn't concern us because we were not feeling it directly. Now, everybody's feeling it in Nigeria. Because it has now, like a cancer,
Everybody's affected.
Of course. And of course, grown different type of wings. And so you can call it banditry here, you can call it kidnapping here, but they are all. And something very scary. I read somebody's description of what he saw when they were kidnapped somewhere around Kaduna and the distance, and that from the snippets of the discussion between those who had kidnapped him and some other people, it now seemed as if certain areas are sectioned off for some people.
It's okay. For some kidnappers.
You kidnap, you own
this territory.
This territory. And this one was, I mean, this is incredible. And that is why we continue to also say that the solutions may require us to think beyond the normal that we are thinking now, because they turn around and they tell us, oh, it's a lack of community policing, so we'll do community policing, and each community knows the other people and so on and so forth. But last week, we also showed another gory video of someone who was beheaded. And they said in the video, they are beheading this person because the person was an informant. That means even those who you say that are going to be the informants and be part of the community policing may also not be very effective. Because for them to know that somebody is an informant, what it means is that those people he was informing to, or she was informing to, must have released information back to them, say, this is the person do. So you could see this country, I think either Bolivia or so, they had these FARC rebels, and they were doing kidnapping, and it turned into a big industry and all that, until one of the presidents said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. And so they formed elite forces and took the fight to them. That's what needs to be done. You take the fight to them. And you section off just like this and take it. And then you clear, you occupy, you clear, you occupy. They did that until they got to the point where the FARC rebels and all those people are no longer, they were prepared to now negotiate and all that, and the insecurity had died down considerably. So we think that the fact that what needs to be done is not being done. And so what it does is to give conspiracy theories the fodder to be able to say maybe there's another agenda. Because you can't tell me that they will say that the Nigerian army that went into Sierra Leone
and Liberia
and imposed order, that went into Liberia and imposed order, will come back to Nigeria and be running away from some people. That is mind-boggling.
Distinguished elder, let me take you to the Constitution and funds allocation, because you mentioned that these people have been deprived and pauperized, but now they have got into the wall and maybe they are fighting back the system that has pauperized them. The 1999 Constitution allocates funds to traditional rulers. There is a fight currently going on between the Emir of Kano and the governor. At a point, the Kano state government said the Emir had so much money, he was embezzling money. I don't know the veracity of that allegation. But the point I'm trying to make, if the northern leadership is lacking the resources to attend to the needs of these very poor or the poorest in their midst, is it not right to withdraw some of the funds from certain institutions that are already rich in order to care for the poor? Would that be a dangerous paradigm?
You're asking the wrong person. The reason why I say you're asking the wrong person is that I'm Igbo and we are Republican and we don't have anybody that sits up there.
It emanates from the Constitution.
No, it doesn't emanate. What the Constitution says is that 5% of local government funds will be given to the traditional institution for the purpose, for what we are talking about, for the purpose of being able to, for the welfare of the people, for whatever they want to use it to do to make and keep the peace. And so, let me make a universal statement. I don't think it is lack of resources. Senator Francis Arthur Nzeribe at one time made a very profound statement, in my view, that Nigerians steal what they don't need. And so you steal $1 million, and then you steal 10 million, and then you steal 100 million, and then you steal 500 million.
It becomes billions.
You steal 1 billion, and then you steal 10 billion, and then you steal 20 billion. You just steal what you don't need. What happens really is that if you really care about your people, you allocate your resources in such a way that it will be able to lift. That is how China was able to lift 100 million people out of poverty. That is half the number of Nigerians. They lifted them out of poverty in 10 years. Now let's put it this way. The legendary Onyeka when she was a BBC reporter, did a television documentary about the life of the rich people, especially in the north, and showed the difference between the opulence of those at the top and the squalor of those at the bottom. I think that was what made her very popular in Nigeria at that time. I think it was in the 70s or so that she did that. You go back to that again and you can see the seeds of what we are suffering today. Because we have an explosion today of information, because we're able to now have visual takes, all you need is a little data. And every young person is keyed to the information age. And so it doesn't matter in which language, you will always get the information you want. And people will now ask themselves,
where we are.
When they ask that question, why? And you're unable to provide it, and you're gallivanting all over the place, and you're driving your phantom Rolls Royces. What do you think is going to happen? You will simply breed people that will rise against society. That's all that I think is happening.
Distinguished Senator, let us leave that area and let us touch the matter of corruption in Nigeria. I'm sure that recently you must have read the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abaka Malami, was in the US with a delegation to sign an agreement on how to repatriate $308 million part of the Abacha loot. Very interestingly, American officials gave a subtle warning that they find a way of getting back that money from us if we re-looted that money. That agreement was signed between Nigeria, US, and Jersey in Channel Islands, from where the money was gotten back. And one of the reasons, one of the stories that confounded Americans was that a Nigerian who was arrested in US, who lived in Texas for 3 years, was arrested because he was doing money laundering for Abacha. He was supposed to have been taken back to Jersey when he pleaded to return 163 million naira.
Dollars?
Dollars to the Nigerian government, which he did. So what the Americans did was to force him back to Nigeria with all the documents on evidence against him, and handed him those documents to the Nigerian government and said, you can use these documents to prosecute him successfully in your own jurisdiction. What did we do? Our security agencies cleared him. He went into election and became a distinguished senator. From there, he contested and became a governor, and is currently a governor enjoying immunity. The American officials said, if we give you such weighty evidence, and he also returned $163 million, an indication that he was somehow involved, and you cleared him for a higher position of trust, how can we trust you yourselves? Why am I telling you this? Do you think that our war on corruption is just a stage drama or an effort to change things for the better?
But you just answered your question.
I don't know the answer.
No, you just answered your question. You said evidence was given to us, yes, and yet we refuse to use that evidence. So what does that tell you? That simply tells you that whatever is being said that we are fighting, we probably are doing something else and not fighting corruption. You just gave the evidence. How could such a thing happen? And yet, it happened. And so, I will tell you this. In the last Senate,
Yes, please.
I was the chairman of Power. And there was also a negotiation done, and there was some $300 and something million that was supposed to be brought this time from, I think it was Switzerland. And they insisted. Now, the Nigerian government then wanted to use it to pay for a power plant. And the people said, no, this should be given to the poor. It should be used to elevate the poor, maybe with very good intentions when they insisted on that. And so we came up with the social
empowerment program.
social empowerment and all that. And all that money went in there, and between you and me, you will know whether
Who has been empowered.
how many people and who was empowered and how that money went and how the wife of the president even complained about what happened. Because these people from the West have far more information about us, because they track everything that happens, and we even have people who tell them A and B and C happened. When they get to know all that, and they have their own evidence and all that, that is why they make this humiliating conditions that we have to. You understand, very humiliating conditions that we have to follow. Because you will expect that with all the myriad of problems that we have, getting something, we ought to first advert our minds to doing the right thing with it. But then, even those that went to negotiate whatever, you recall that at one point that there was a time that something that had been finished and was simply to be repatriated to us had been done by some white lawyer, and everything was done, and then they now went and brought some Nigerian lawyers who also put another bill for what had been paid for earlier. And so when those things happen, and you are the person from the United States who has to give people that, you will also say, well, maybe this will not reach where it wants to go. And in order for it to reach where it wants to go, let me put condition A, B, C. And of course, we have no options. We had to shamefacedly accept this humiliation. This is no longer the giant of Africa. I don't think so.
How did we come to this pass where it appeared that
Everybody asks
opportunism...
that question. How did it come to this? It also gets down to the only thing that Signaturetv reminded us in his, let me say, in his work, where he said, the trouble with Nigeria is leadership. That's all. Our leadership, all of us, including myself, we are all failed. Because leadership is not just the man at the top, it's at every level where you are. Otherwise, if we had such a styling leadership that we were all seeking for and we wrote about, we will be having the kind of communication that we are having in the presidency, and everybody's asking ourselves, how did we come to this? That's all. Leadership matters. And I say this, when you need to recruit people, because getting people and doing elections and doing all those things are part of the leadership recruitment model. 3 C's: character, competence, and capability. Most important, is character. You can be competent, but if you're a weak character, you will end up not being able to do those things, because right at that point, you will compromise. Maybe, and it will lead to a failure, another one. So at the end of the day, leadership, you can't run away from that fact. And at every point that somebody who needs to take responsibility will always start to look for,
excuse.
When God asked Adam, and Adam turned around
My friend,
and said,
what have you done?
"It is that woman that you gave to me that made me eat." So you could see that it's as old as man.